All right, good people. Oh, we got to take this off.
Yeah,
SKP,
what's going on, bro?
what's going on, my friends?
Dude, I have been I had a couple of Zooms earlier today, and I've been homeschooling a couple of kids, so apologies if I was slightly tardy. My son ran into where I was watching some playoffs because I had a minute. And he's like, Joe, Uncle Joe just texted you. You got like 2 minutes. I was like, oh shit, let me go. So yeah, man. Here I am. What's good,
Oh
partner?
man, it is all good. It's good to see your face, my friend.
Always a pleasure, man. You know that. You know that.
No doubt. It's been a minute, man. We've been on lockdown quite some time now.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Like since March, I mean, it feels like the world got flipped upside down a couple times over. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's in sort of this state of isolation, just trying to find ways to cultivate community, stay connected with people. A lot of Zooming, a lot of IGing. You guys on the ones and twos, keeping people, moving to the beat. It's nice to know that creativity is out there, so that we don't have any way not to see each other, even if it's virtually. We're making it do what it do.
No doubt.
Yeah,
So, tonight was kind of a last minute change. Originally this was going to be the 20th sort of anniversary of the live mixtape, 20th episode.
yeah.
And, when this weekend's news hit, I, kind of went into a little bit of a shell and came out, watched Black Panther 3 times. Big shout to April Rain for her running commentary
Always.
throughout the broadcast. Um, and, I decided that it was, a fitting tribute to take this moment and revisit the Wakanda Forever Ever mixtape,
Yeah.
really as a way of kind of trying to bring the conversation back about the importance of the movie. Um, and I think also about how amazing Chadwick is, not just in this, but in many other films and in a lot of the clips that we got to hear during the broadcast, the mixtape as well. Just
Yeah.
so many jewels, so many words of wisdom from him. So I think, before we start talking about the movie, I wanted to just kind of get your thoughts. Um, you know, Talk for a second about, what Chadwick was like as a person. We've heard these stories about his incredible strength, having this disease and not revealing it.
Yeah.
Uh, so talk for a minute about, what he was like as a person and the kind of strength that he displayed as a person.
So I've known Chad for roughly 4 years. We did Marshall like in 2016. And so it just sort of hit me as I found out about his diagnosis that the whole time that I had a relationship with him, he had been diagnosed with cancer, right? And so there was, hold on, I'm about to get bombed by this kid.
Hey, what's going on, buddy?
We can't hear you. Say, what's up? I'm talking right now, so let me finish my conversation. My my wife's
Quarantine
gonna help me
life.
out. It's quarantine life, bro. There's no business without family. This kid jumps on every single Zoom that I'm on, and he steals all of my thunder. But basically, like it sort of hit me like the whole time that we knew each other, he had been dealing with this diagnosis, right? And so he's playing Thurgood Marshall in this movie, and he's a very like deeply contemplative person, very quiet, very serene, right? But intense in his serenity as well. Like he brooks very little nonsense, but he's not flexing. He's just hyper focused, right? And I'm wondering, like the folks that I've talked to that known him before his diagnosis say he's pretty much the same way. But I'm imagining that it's probably heightened that much more when you know that when you're face to face with your own mortality, right? And you're saying, if I'm going to use this art, to what end am I going to use it? Can I really make a difference? Can I really leave an impression and hopefully change the world for the better with the stories that I help to tell, right? And I think that was very much like the essence of the man that I got a chance to know. Like every camera angle, every word, like he would talk to the director. If he felt something wasn't right, he would speak up about it. And not in a way that was a pain in the butt, but because he wanted to make it better. I
Mm.
remember he was just about to start training for Panther when we were doing Marshall. And he was talking about like the martial art that he was practicing and how it had a very strong African influence because he wanted to make sure that that was part, the fighting style was part of the story that was being told.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I remember like after we shot the movie, right? Because we didn't have any scenes. I'd see him on set every once in a while and be like, "Hello, my king, how are you today?" And he'd laugh and we'd have a hearty chuckle about the whole thing. But he would talk about like the usage of drums during the fight scenes and how like if we didn't have drums during the fight, like we just what's the difference between the Wakandans and the Romans? Like it's
Mm.
got to have that certain flavor and a certain sort of um, cultural heritage that people can recognize as being like, of course they got drums. Like,
Mm-hmm.
of course, this is how we're going to get down. You know what I mean? He, and when the movie came out, when it was finally out, because he was the first person to have seen it, I was like, bruh, how you feeling? He's like, I feel good, man. Like I feel good. Like not in a like a cocky way, but he's like, yo, I think we did something nice, right? And then with the kindness that he had, because there was never any sense of competition. It was always love. He'd be like, and how the hell do you wind up like stealing part of the movie and your black ass is only in there for 5 minutes? I was like, that's what I do, bro. That's what I do. You know what I'm saying? But
That is what you do.
I appreciate it, but he gives love, and
Mm.
because he gives love readily, he deserves all of the love that he has been receiving in life, and now unfortunately posthumously as well.
Do you
Um,
do
yeah,
you think in the interviews I've seen, he just seems very deliberate. I mean, I think in the way you're describing, he's very deliberate. Do you think he had a sense of the significance and the impact of his work and of that the moment?
I think like when you talk about his work overall, like he's like, I don't know why they keep asking me to play like these real life people. So from, you know, Jackie Robinson to James Brown to Thurgood Marshall, like he even for him it sort of became a bit of something kind of humorous that he would poke fun of himself. I was looking forward to the time when he did the Kawhi Leonard story, even though he's like 10 years older than Kawhi Leonard. But they have a similar sort of just like they focused, you know what I'm saying? I think he knew that that representation and representation that was positive and uplifting was something that we were hungry for as a culture for Black folks or whatnot. And then with Panther in particular, I think he recognized that there had been this sort of myth that majority society could not see themselves reflected in the eyes of a Black person, right?
Mm.
And that even overseas there's this big thing in Hollywood that like, you know, Black stories don't do well internationally, right?
Mm.
And they just didn't have the right story. And when we presented them with the right story that was culturally specific, you're able to address these universal themes and people would be like, oh, that shit's not much different than what I would have expected, you know, if I were in that situation.
Yeah, and there's a quote from Ryan Coogler that actually is on the mixtape where he's talking about that. He's like, why wouldn't it work that way? It's been working that way for Black folks all along, in terms of
All along.
identifying with characters that don't look like them. So,
Yeah.
so tell me another thing. The movie gives such a vivid picture, and I think it paints so delicately and so in such detail. Um, so it's really impactful. Like I think it affects everybody that watches it. What has been the most moving aspect for you of watching the impact of this film?
That's a good question. And I've been thinking about that a bit, and I think that sort of the connectivity of Blackness, because this one of the central questions of the movie is like, who is Wakandan, right? Like, who do I open my borders up to, and who do I keep them closed off to? And even in Jobu was saying that, like, you know, we are all brothers and sisters of this country, of this continent, and we have the means to be of assistance to one another. And you keeping this technology, you know, is being selfish in a way. And so it hit me in a way because growing up in St. Louis, Missouri, there's historically been a little bit of a disconnect between African Americans and folks from the continent who are African or whatnot. And I think that more than anything, this movie showed the connectivity is not one or the other, that like Black people should be united in a universal struggle to be seen as equal, to be appreciated as fully humanized human beings. And so like there's a sense of love that I have when I see Black Americans, Africans, English folks who are Black or whatnot, all coming together to help tell a Black story, and not have to be like, well, we're not like them, we're not like them. Like we're all in it together, and we help tell that story together.
Hmm.
That's just powerful.
Okay.
Yeah.
So another question, I think watching the film now, against, the backdrop of what's going on in the world, um, what does this fantasy world of Black Panther have to teach us, about our own world in this moment?
Hmm.
And maybe, I think as a side question to that, I think, you play in Jobu, and
Yeah.
obviously, you have to get into the mind frame of his motivations and so forth. There's a big conversation out in the world of, whether or not Killmonger is even a villain,
A bad guy.
whether he's kind of an anti-hero, because,
Yeah.
the two characters represent two sides of that argument. So, another question I wanted to ask you is, when you're watching, who do you find yourself rooting for? And maybe that's related to, the previous question.
Okay. Well, let me answer the second question first. Because people will say like, "Yo, he's not a bad guy, but he did cap his girl in the dome
That's
without
true.
a hesitate,
That's true.
without hesitation." So anytime you cap your girl in the dome without hesitation, your moral compass may be slightly askew, right? And I think that that is also sort of a testament to what Ryan is telling with the story of a young man growing up without a father, and the situation that a lot of Black men in America find themselves being with absentee fathers and having to find their own direction without anyone to help them illuminate the path, right? Whereas in Wakanda, you have the ancestors where you can enter into that astral plane and ask for guidance and ask for help. So even though they may not be there physically, you have access to them on a spiritual level, right?
Hmm.
And what you see in America is a lot of folks without direction, and then they have to pick a direction. And so while he had his intentions, I'll say in Jobu's intentions were honorable, and his son tried to continue those intentions, it did turn into something where it wasn't as magnanimous as I think as in Jobu had originally intended, right?
Right.
So now the first question again, like how does it reflect on where we are right now, man?
Well, I
I mean,
think it's more, what can we learn? If people go and they watch this movie right now and they're looking, at CNN, and then they change the channel to this, what does this movie have to teach us in this moment?
Lord,
What do you say?
it's really fucking heavy, Joe. I mean, come on, man. Well, okay, wait, help me out because you tell me what you think the answer to that question is, and allow me
Well,
to
you know what?
piggyback.
Let me put it a different way, because I think there was an interview I saw with Ryan Coogler talking about how the film really taught him to appreciate his African heritage and the beauty of his
Yeah,
African heritage. So maybe a better way of putting it is, what did the film um, teach you about yourself?
yeah. I mean, maybe to your point, like that, your legacy, your story doesn't begin with the institution of slavery. Like that's a huge thing. That there is a cultural pride that extends to a royalty that we have not been taught or have been deprived of for the majority of our lives. Um, and that to a certain extent, like what the movie does in seeing a technologically advanced society, a society that was able to withstand colonization, that was sort of like not um, depurified by any sort of colonizers or what have you, that there is we come from an intelligence, we come from a royalty. There is something that other than just saying like, we started from the bottom, now we here. We
Right.
actually started up much, much higher, and then somebody pushed us down,
Mm.
right? And now we're trying to get back to where we were before. I think that's a message that's empowering, so that you don't feel as if you have to relate to struggle as your only sort of touchstone for what it means to be Black. Like being Black is much more
Hmm.
than that.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I think that's a beautiful point, honestly.
Yeah,
I think in a lot of the hip hop from the era that I grew up in, that message is also in there. You know, we're kings, we come from kings, so forth. You know, X Clan I
for
played
sure.
samples from, and a lot of that. So I think, yeah, it is a beautiful thing to see that message sort of broaden to the bigger world.
Yeah.
So, all right. So another question: have you talked to your kids about it? What have your kids learned from watching this movie?
You know what? Like, so I got a almost 5-year-old and a 9-year-old, and they both love the movie. But I try not. The 5-year-old is not into deep thoughts. He ain't Jack Handy
For
level
sure.
quite yet, right?
Right.
The 9-year-old is interesting because I talked to him about it infrequently because the first time we saw it, so I thought he was gonna freak out when I died in the movie, right?
Ah.
So he watches dad take claws to the chest, and he's actually like, all right, you gotta go, you gotta go. He was cool. He kept watching the movie, right? But bruh, when Killmonger died, the flood that like just broke, and
Really?
he cried uncontrollably, right? Because the dude who was playing my son in the
Oh.
movie lost his
Oh
life.
wow.
And I had to like scoop him up in my lap and sort of rock him and be like, it's okay, man. It's
Wow.
okay. So my son is one of these like people who on the outside has a very sort of tough exterior, but when shit like hits him, it hits him really, really hard. Like we were also
I can't
not that
imagine who he takes after.
listen, from mom and dad, we both got a flair for the dramatic, right? But the other day, Ryan was behind on watching Watchmen. And I was like, right, you got to watch Watchmen. Like, this shit is off the chain. So she starts watching the first episode, and the first episode takes place, in Tulsa, like the Black Wall Street, like Klan coming through, destroying this place. I said, Andrew, I'll let you watch the first scene. Like, this really isn't for kids, but I'll let you watch the first bit. And
Mm.
the first bit ends with this town being destroyed, this young boy being given to
Yeah.
another group of people and barely escapes, and then him picking up a little girl who's been thrown from this car and is like, "That I'll take care of you, right?"
Mm.
And so Ryan and I look over at Andrew, and he is just bawling again, and he's like, "Why do they have to be so mean to us? Like,
Mm.
why do they hate us so much?"
Mm.
Right? And like Ryan and I hold him and we talk to him, and I say, look, man, it is unfortunate. And it doesn't always make sense that people, in order to make themselves feel good, have to make other people feel bad or to destroy other people in order to validate their worth. You know what I'm saying? And it's not every segment of society, but it is still present in this society. And I'd
Mm.
rather you be knowledgeable and aware of it than naive to the fact that there are some people just based on who you are who do not want to see you be full participants in society. So it's weird with the 9-year-old man because you have to educate them, but you also want them to be a kid, and you're sort of at war with both of those things, trying to find a balance that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think right
Yeah,
now it's hard to shield them from what's happening in the world,
it's
and it's even
impossible.
harder to explain it sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, so I wanna give people in here a chance to ask questions. So if you do have questions, please put them in the
Okay.
comments. I got to shout out Ryan Michelle Bathe. So
Wife, wife.
I don't know if everyone in here knows, but Ryan Michelle Bathe is responsible for my DJ career as well as your acting career. She hired me for my first ever paid DJ gig, and she just shouted out Brand Nubian, so I gotta give her props for that as well. When I was talking about Afrocentric hip hop from the '90s, she's like, "Ooh, don't forget Brand Nubians."
That's
So,
the wife.
so speaking of which, you are a mega fan of music. I see now the world is starting to get familiar with that by way of your TikTok videos. You have the unique distinction of being the only person to ever split a pair of pants at two parties I DJ'd. Not one, but two. One of them was your own wedding.
This is
So,
true. I'm just glad I had on black drawers, man, because you
I
got on
agree.
black
I'm
pants
glad
and you
too.
got polka dots on. It's embarrassing.
So I say all that to say, this has been a long quarantine. Over in our house, we've been having dance parties. My
Yeah, man.
kids are now, Mary J. Blige, Erykah Badu, and reggae fans. What is happening over in the Brown Bethay household musically? What is getting you through the quarantine right now?
The Bird rocks pretty much all the verses. I heard her listening to Monica and Brandy the other day, and she's like,
Oh yeah.
"Yes, child." Like the old black woman in my wife like comes to the surface. No more so than when Jill and Badu did theirs. I think that was her.
Woo!
That was the top form for her. Like
Yeah.
everybody was worried after Babyface and Teddy Riley was like, are these Negroes gonna figure this technology out? Because this shit is not
Shout
going
out
super
Swiss
smooth.
Beats for figuring it out. Shout out
Shout
Timberland.
out to Beats. But it took them a minute, but thankfully
Yes.
we're trending upward with
Oh
this
yeah.
shit right now.
Oh
You know what
yeah.
I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
Um, for me, like it's funny, my wife does a weekly show on her Instagram, and she did like a whole segment of her show dedicated to WAP, right? To WAP.
Uh-oh.
And she was sort of like shocked at how open these women can be with regards to their sexuality now. And she's saying that she hadn't seen it happen before, but I don't know if that's true. I think that there has been permission in sexuality, but what she did say was that it was separate from like a man being present in the video. Like it wasn't for necessarily the male gaze. Like it was like women kind of showing out for women. And I was like, okay, I'll take that. Like, but we are talking about pull-out game and stuff. But either way, shit is mad catchy. I try not to sing it in front of my kids. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Can you hear me?
so yeah, sorry. Somebody
Yeah.
has a question, and I want to know the
Okay.
answer to this question too, because I heard a rumor that Njobu and Zuri, in the first scene where you see them, are trying to break Njobu's wife out of prison. Is that correct? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah, I've heard. Like, it's funny with the things that people think that they see. No, there's no truth to that at all whatsoever. And then, like, watch Ryan Coogler will be watching this, and then it'll be like in Panther 2. There'll be some sort of flashback. And like,
And shout out to April Rain for that question.
what up, April?
Yes, what up, April? All right, so you didn't get to finish the question entirely. So I want to know what kind of music is getting played over during quarantine. What is getting you through? I mean, are we listening to Marvin Gaye, and are we listening to John Legend? Are we listening to Cardi B? Are we listening to everything?
Listening to a little everything. I've actually been going back. I've been listening to Speakerbox and Love Below recently. Okay. I don't know why. Like, actually, I ran into 3000 at a vegan restaurant, and because he moved out to LA, and I was like, oh shit, 3000. And I was talking to Clinton on the phone. A friend of ours from Stanford, and I was talking to him on Facebook Messenger from Switzerland. I was like, Clint, say hi to 3000. He's like, Negro, you talking to 3000? I was like, that's how we do. That's how we in these streets right now, right? So I've been listening to Speakerbox and Love Below, and like, it's funny because everyone gives 3000 the props that he deserves as an artist, and he is, so unique and original and whatnot. But like Speakerbox, thumps. Like Big Boy deserves his props. Like that shit. Like, so the workout, the Speakerbox is the one that gets the play. Like when you're on the treadmill and whatnot. I'm also like a big Wu-Tang dude, and so I've been listening to Wu-Tang forever. Like the violins get me on that Wu-Tang motherfucker.
Here you go, buddy. I got something for you.
Who am I? I'm not cursing in front. There it is. Oh. Forever and ever, dude.
Oh, it's backwards, but
I see it.
That's the Wu-Tang live mixtape we did a couple weeks ago. I have to send you that.
Oh, please.
Oh, yeah.
You have to.
Oh, yeah.
You have to.
I did two. So, yeah. I did 2 weeks worth of Wu-Tang. I finally have to lay claim to Staten Island, so I figured I would do a Wu-Tang.
I didn't know if you claimed that like audibly, like if you let people know where you are or not.
Only when it relates to the Wu-Tang Clan.
What up, Sep? Now I hear you back there.
Oh boy. Oh Lord.
So yeah, that's, I mean, besides those two, like I have the kids who like listening to DJ Marshmello, right? So like there's a lot
Okay.
of Marshmello that the kids like, and then also the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is an underrated that the whole family can rock out to. So that
You
gets
said
played.
underrated soundtrack?
Yes.
Yeah, and shout out my man DJ Khalil, produced
Yeah.
a couple joints on that soundtrack that are amazing.
Joints hot.
Yeah, well, man, listen, you and I know that this could go on eternally, as it usually does. So before the This Is Us questions start rolling in the comments feed, and we have to change gears,
Yeah.
I will salute you and say thank you for tuning in. You know that very soon there will be a J.PERIOD album available,
I
and
can't wait.
yeah.
Can I before I go, look
Yes.
to the 300 folks that are out there right now, like thank you for coming and listening to me and my man talk to each other. This dude has been doing this for such a long time and has been doing it at such a high level for such a long time. Like I remember when the mixtapes probably were just not, were only circulating in Brooklyn and maybe a little bit beyond. And I'm so, if I can be proud of you, I'm so proud / impressed / humbled by your hustle, man. Like at no point in time did you take no for an answer. You still doing this shit and you still doing it big, and I love you, and I can't wait for the next time we do this to go from 300 to 3,000 to 30,000 to 300,000, because
There
it
you
will
go.
happen, my dude.
There you go. All right. I love
Yeah.
you. I salute you.
I love you
And
back,
thank
bro.
you to everybody out there for tuning in for the live mixtape, Wakanda Edition. And shout out my man Sterling K. Brown.
Peace, bro.
Peace.
Later, man. Bye, Seth.
Bye.